Okay, so today we're going to be running through a few easy steps to improvising this kind of happy, quirky sounding music. There's a little bit more to it than that. There's some variety involved. But anyway, first step, we need to know the Lydian scale. This is really, really easy. So if we take the C major scale, all we have to do to get the Lydian scale in C is raise the fourth note. So the fourth note of C major is C, D, E, F. So we raise that to F sharp. And then we get this scale. It's like, you know, a kind of subtle little difference, but it actually adds a real kind of quirkiness to the music. And I'm going to be sort of bouncing around the piano quite a lot, but if you want to know the fingering for that is actually the same as F major. So if you know the F major scale, this uses the same fingering. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and then you can end on 4, or if you're going to carry on up, you can go to your thumb. All right. Anyway, I generally find that when I'm sort of improvising music, the fingering for the scale sort of a little bit goes out the window because I start jumping around and I use whatever finger seems convenient at the time. Anyway, so there's our scale. Why don't you have a go and play that, and just try to not play it like a scale. Try to bounce around it a little bit. So I don't know, just like a. Okay, so that, you know, that's just the scale, but I'm playing it a little bit randomly, so it sounds more like a melody than just a scale. So next we have to add our left hand, and our left hand is going to play what's called an open fifth, or at least that's how it's going to start. So an open fifth is just the first and fifth note of a scale. So the first and fifth note of our scale is C and G, and then we're going to add the octave, so we'll have a C at the top as well. So now, if we play around in our scale, with that chord, we get this. And it sounds all right. It sounds decent. But we can make it much more interesting just by breaking up the chord. So instead of playing it as a block chord, we'll break it up like this. So C, C, G, C, G, C, you know, simple pattern. And we're also going to add in the sustain pedal because that's going to sound really nice. So let's do exactly what I just did. Honestly, to me, that already is starting to sound like real music. It has a kind of like slightly Disney vibe. I can imagine that being in a Disney film. Using the sustain pedal, breaking up that chord starts to sound immediately very cool. If that seems easy to you and you want to make it a little bit better, instead of playing the C at the top, change that C with an E. So you might recognize that as a C major triad. We've actually just got C, E, G, but we're moving the E to the top. If you can't reach the full chord, you can break it up. We want to do that anyway. Okay, so. Okay, so it's similar, but just having that extra little sort of harmonizing note there makes, I think it makes quite a nice difference. All right, now that we've got this far, we want to start making things a bit more interesting. So we're going to start thinking about the articulation. So articulation is how you hit a note. Is it, are they going to be smooth? Or are they going to be staccato? And sort of anything in between. We can get sort of two distinct sounds out of this scale, this whole method, just by changing the articulation. So far, I've been using the pedal, I've been going smoothly. But if we start to play staccato, gets much more sort of jaunty and bouncy, has a bit more energy in it. Now, what I've discovered works quite well is for the legato, where you're using the pedal. It's really nice to have these broken chords because they have a nice flow. But when you're doing the staccato thing, it actually works pretty well to play this more as a kind of it's like a marching thing. So you hit your bass note and then you hit the other two notes together as a chord, like that. And that works really well with the staccato. Okay, so that little tip there, that's just how I like to do it. You can do whatever, but I think that sounds cool. Okay, so we have our articulation, smooth and with the pedal, or staccato without the pedal. Now we're going to think a bit about rhythm. So I think mainly I've been doing kind of straight quavers. Honestly, I don't know what I've been doing. That's improvising. But basically, here's straight notes. They're all quavers. They're all kind of the same length as each other. If we use dotted rhythms, so a dotted rhythm is when one note is longer than the next one, so it sort of goes long, short to long, short to long, like that. You might know it as swinging. That's kind of their dotted rhythms. Oh, they're not exactly dotted rhythms, but anyway, ignore that. That's for another video. So basically, we just want to start doing this. So if I do that with the right hand. So there I'm mainly doing dotted rhythms, but even then I'm adding in a couple straight notes. To make stuff interesting, you usually don't want to stick to just one pattern and then do that all the way. Maybe sometimes, but on the whole, you want to vary things a bit. But yeah, those dotted rhythms, they have a kind of skipping feel, which I think is like really appropriate for this particular sound. Okay, so dotted rhythms. Honestly, if you've got this far and you can do this, and you can do this, we've got two really nice sounding things there, and so far it's been pretty straightforward. And if you've got that far, honestly, maybe that's enough. I think that's pretty entertaining, playing like that. But if you think you can handle a bit more, I do have some tips on making this more interesting, and this is where it gets really cool. Firstly, ornaments. Ornamentation in music is really, really great. So an example of an ornament would be a trill. Okay, so those are trills. Trill is just when you alternate between two notes rapidly. Then we have mordents. Mordents are like tiny trills. They just go. Now, the good things about mordents, they might not sound quite as impressive as a trill, but they're more mobile. So, I don't know. Okay, so mordents, because they're so short, you can sort of jump around the piano and sort of just keep doing them. So mordents are really cool. And then, what's the other? Oh, turns. So a turn is when you take a starting note, let's say G, and then you go starting note, up, back to starting note, down, back to starting note. It's easy. Okay, so those are turns. When you improvise, think of these as like tools in your tool chest, and as you play, obviously you're trying to think about your melody and everything, but then just occasionally throw in one of these things, throw in a trill. It's going to sound really good. Always sounds quite impressive. And by the way, it's fine to do trills slowly. I mean, if you can sort of go. That's a slow trill. That sounds really nice too, and that's fine. Then I really like this. This improves the music a lot. Thirds. Playing in thirds. So a third is like a tiny chord. A third is when you take a note from the scale. We'll have C. You skip over the next note and play the third one. So first, second, third. Okay, so third, third. Those are all thirds, and they work really, really well in this scale. Let's go legato. Okay, a third sound really nice. They are quite difficult to play. I've actually been practicing those recently in the Hanon exercises. The thirds are difficult to play fast, but again, even if you do them slow. Even so, they sound really good. I don't want you to get too bogged down. It is also fine to do chords. That's okay, but you do start to find possibly kind of some clumsy harmonies in there. So if you want to play it safe, stick with thirds. That's fine. Right. Oh, and my last point about this was to modulate. I would see this a bit as like an optional extra. But basically modulating is when you're in one key signature and then you shift into another one. So for example, we are in C. Now, if we shift to F, F is super easy in the Lydian scale, the F Lydian scale, because it is just F to F, all white notes. So it's very easy to shift to it. So if we're in C, and then we do the exact same thing, but in F. I'm going to go to D. So there I was doing the exact same thing in the C Lydian scale, then the F Lydian scale, then the D Lydian scale. And it sounds pretty nice. Let me try and sort of improvise a little bit and shift between those. Modulate between them, if you want to be fancy. Yeah, okay, so I have to think about that because I haven't actually practiced all the Lydian scales. So I had to go quite slow there. But anyway, modulating is a nice way to get a bit more out of your improvising, because you can basically just do the same thing that you've been doing but somewhere else, and it feels like you're doing something a bit new, and it's adding some variety. Okay, so I'm just going to summarize all that because even though I do think the steps were fairly simple, there was quite a lot. So just to summarize that, you start with your Lydian scale. It is the same as a major scale, but you raise the fourth note, one semitone. Then you add an open fifth or a triad on your left hand. So the triad would be, the fifth would be just the first and fifth note of the scale. The triad would be the first, third, and fifth. And in our case, we move the third to the top. Then we think about articulation, so we can get different effects by playing legato with a pedal or staccato without the pedal. Then we're going to think about rhythm. As I said, if you play straight notes, you get a very you can get a very kind of soothing. And if you add the dotted notes, you get a more sort of jaunty, skipping, happy, jolly sound, whatever, bit more energy. And then, oh yes, and then adding things that make it interesting. So ornaments, you can add in trills, mordents, turns. You can add in thirds, which I really like. And you can modulate if you're feeling really adventurous. Okay, that's everything I have to say about improvising in this sort of happy, quirky style. I hope that brightened up your day. If it did, give the video a like and maybe even subscribe. And as always, I hope I see you in the next one.